As you know, I recently started a playthrough of Hector hard mode where the enemies have 50% higher growths, resulting in combat forecasts like you see here. I also randomized the game, so most of my units now suck. I've been unable to complete any side objectives so far, and this level will be no different. I can't get the chest because I have no thief, and I can't save the green units because this archer is going to attack them from turn 1. Knowing that, I decided to take the level slow and weather the storm at the front entrance. My units had gotten better and were able to output reasonable damage to the enemy now and keep from being doubled most of the time. That being said, the enemy's damage output hadn't really decreased at all. They were still halving my health with one hit, with really high hit rates as well. I also had no res tank whatsoever, so when the reinforcements from the south ended up being mages, I had no good answers to deal with them. The continual problem was that after an enemy phase, most of my army needed healing, and the only healer available was Sarah. As the turns passed, my healing deficit grew, and less of my units could fight back each turn. After I made it through the initial barrage, the long hallway to the end gave me time to catch up on said healing deficit as I made my way to the boss. About 90 billion Hectors spawned in this tiny little space, who all for some reason didn't understand how walls worked. I used my own Hector and Kent to slowly whittle these enemies down until I was able to leisurely stroll up to the boss. Before the boat level, I took stock of my promotion items, or lack thereof. I had an Earth Seal, but since that acts as a sort of wild card, I wanted to see what other promotion items I got before I committed to using it. I also had an Ocean Seal, which I suppose I could use to promote a pirate, if I had one. And before any of you say anything, yes, I know that brigands like Oswin could promote using the Ocean Seal too, but I forgot, okay? Look, nobody's perfect. Normally, the pirate ship is a mad dash to the boss, and the survive 11 turns objective is an afterthought. Unfortunately, this time we're fighting for our fucking lives. Wave after wave of enemies crashed into my meager fortifications, and once again my healing deficit grew uncontrollably large. I abused the fuck out of save states to try to beat this level, and was still left resetting for literal hours. I did, however, get another promotion item from an enemy, an Ocean Seal. Yay! Never mind, I got 2 more Ocean Seals from the enemy. The enemies had become noticeably stronger than previous levels, mainly through upgraded equipment. So many of the enemies were rocking killer weapons now, and my only real strategy was to hope they didn't crit. The reinforcements being mostly Draconites and Pegasites that could easily outmaneuver me didn't fucking help. I barely found time to visit the shops here, since every one of my units needed to be fighting on my turns. During the last turn, I retreated towards Merlinus and just hoped I could live. Somehow saying fuck it and pressing end turn worked, and I cleared the level. As I'm sure many of you are aware, the next level is a Fog of War level. Fog of War during a randomized game is generally one of the worst experiences Fire Emblem has to offer. Like so many levels before this one, the enemy decided to spawn plenty of Pegasus and Draconites to absolutely fuck me over. Dart had become a mage with only one magic, and Fiora was a halfway decent Pegasus Knight with an Axe Weaver who I can't recruit because Florina's already dead. I had both of them just sort of run around the map dealing what damage they could before their inevitable demises. One of the biggest early problems was the enemy Hector, who also had a Wolf Bale. The Wolf Bale in this randomizer doubles as a brave weapon, and one that is still effective against armor and cavalry. What fucking fun! I had most of my units head south to deal with him, while Eliwood and Dart went north to hold off the enemies up there. Look, I just needed them to survive long enough for my good units to clear the south. I didn't need them to be good. When the reinforcements started to show up in the north, they were, of course, Draconites with heavy spears. An old classic from last part. These Draconites ended up absolutely wrecking Eliwood's shit, and Lynn had trouble surviving very long too, so we did a wee bit of finagling and sacrificed Dart to get out of this one alive. These enemies gave me another new promotion item, a Fell Contract, you know, for that thief I haven't had all game. After clearing out the immediate enemies, the level became notably easier as I balanced my healing budget and began making my way towards the boss. The boss used a silent staff to fuck over my healer. Without anyone to heal my units, my usual boss strategy of slowly whittle the boss down while crying about his absurdly high stats wasn't going to work. None of my units could take more than one hit, and if they could do that, they weren't dealing much damage either. I took a gamble and sent Hector to attempt to crit the boss. If it didn't work, I was dead for sure, and oh fuck, he actually did it. Never mind, the boss is a little bitch. I realized going into the next level that if I wanted to make any progress in this run, I had to start collecting some goddamn chests. Legault joined as an armor knight with a lot of chest keys. In order to recruit him, I need to move through this level quickly. You know, the bane of the run up until this point. I ran north, received my 4th ocean seal from one of the first enemies I killed. Yup. At this point, I have no words. Fuck this game, fuck this randomizer, fuck ocean seals for even existing. Why the fuck can't they just double up with hero crests like every other fucking class in this game? There's like one total pirate that you can actually use on your team. And fuck you if you haven't subscribed. Jesus, that was shameless even for me. Hector used his second to last use of Winter's Abyss on the first boss. And since I really wanted to herminate it later, assuming I even get the staff, I decided not to use the final use yet. The enemy bottlenecked in this choke point, and realizing that there was no way I was making it through there fast enough to recruit Legault, I broke the wall and headed around with Lynn and Kent while Hector and Oswin held down the choke point and Dorcas dealt with reinforcements from behind. I managed to cut off the thieves before they escaped, securing both a silver blade and dragon axe for my party. Legault opened the door and walked right into Hector's waiting arms for some reason, so I recruited him and sent him to open chests. Fun fact, Legault joined with capped strength, and though his speed is a little too low to really tank, his damage output is one of the highest on my team, so I guess we're running 2 armor knights now. I had gotten a chest key off an enemy, so Kent took the group south to deal with the reinforcements and open the early chest I had left. The reinforcements were all Pegasus Knights and Draco Knights with a shit ton of short spears, so they formed our second bottleneck of the chapter. While Dorcas slowly dealt with them, Legault opened the northern chest to find 2 Lance Reavers. Yay. Once the southern enemies were dealt with, Kent opened the chest to get an Eclipse spell that only had 1 use, thanks to the randomizer. This is worthless. By the time I had gotten that chest, reinforcements from the north had formed another giant bottleneck to deal with. This one was extra fun because half the enemies had axes and lance reavers, while the other half had steel swords. So I had to keep switching between Legault and Oswin in order to tank their attacks. I held out long enough for the rest of my team to get here, and then used Kent and Hector to sweep the remaining foes from afar. The second boss of this chapter ends up being another enemy with highly inflated stats. Who would have guessed? Dorcas got lucky with this crit because otherwise this fight would have taken the rest of my mortal life. He is max level, so no experience, but I'm just glad this shit is over. The next level is another Fog of War map! Yay! I discovered that the enemy burned the villages down as early as turn 2 and 4, so I decided to rush in and see what happened. I promoted Oswin with the Ocean Seal because I remembered I could do that, and Oswin could actually survive pretty decently now. He was a couple points of strength away from actually killing enemies and still had accuracy problems, but he could occasionally crit to secure a kill, and could take more hits than the rest of my team, so he took point with Hector on this level. I had Dorcas and Eli Wood stay behind to secure the houses in the back, while the rest of the team went to escort Lynn to the houses in the front. Ninian joined this level. I had intended to not use her, I'll be honest, but since she came in as an archer with 15 speed, you know, her strength was kind of low, sure, but there was a chance she patched that up over time, and she was able to make short work of the Pegasus Knights and deal with enemies from afar with the ballista on this map, so she ended up putting in a lot of work. I secured the houses behind me, gaining another Lance Reaver and Sword Slayer for my trouble. Yay. However, when Lynn made it to the first house further up, she made up for all my bad luck by getting a Solkati. Maybe not all my bad luck, but like a lot of it. With an army of Draco Knights and Pegasus Knights in my way, reaching the final house up north before the enemy did was impossible. I got close, but the enemy burned it down too quickly. A disturbance in the forest informed me that reinforcements had begun to spawn, so I had my army form up in the center of town to start dealing with them. Once again, they were mostly flying units, including plenty more Draco shields with heavy spears. I managed to get another promotion item from these enemies. Can you guess what it is? An Orion's Bolt. But you thought it was an Ocean Seal, didn't you? With the Orion's Bolt, I could promote Kent next level. I just needed to get through this one first. After a literal hour of struggling through this one level, I cleared out all the enemies and headed towards the boss. I cautiously inched my way down, revealing the enemy Swordmaster. And do you know what he did? He did what Swordmasters do with his fucking killing edge. The only unit who could survive being crit and clapped back with his own was Oswin. That left the enemy with a measly 5 HP, so I could finish him off with a Gult. With that, we could finally leave the Dread Isles. Good riddance. So let's recap. Going forward, we still desperately need promotion items, and I really need to find a strategy for killing bosses that's not, what if I get lucky and crit? I feel like I end every part of this run by saying, I feel like we're making good progress, and next part will be better. And honestly, at this point, I have no fucking hope left. This run is hanging on by a thread, and most likely we end up soft-locked in the desert because Pent can't survive the uber enemies the game throws at him. But subscribe so you can be there to watch it and enjoy my eternal suffering.